All right. So yeah, here we go. The first question is, what will you do as president to recruit more players? Yoda, I'm gonna start with you because you're here, and begin.
It should come as no surprise to participants or audience of this hallowed debate when I say that accelerating and fastening community engagement and productivity in Cortesia del Mar must be the primary issue not only of this election but any presidency thereafter. Cortesia has, since its beginning on this server, had a very firm and capable national base. But our nation cannot remain merely a base forever. Simple mediocrity is below our capabilities. Consistently recruiting and retaining more players is a critical component of this oh so important goal. We have already had several successes in this area in just the past few months, and under my presidency, I fully intend to ramp this up with more extensive measures to integrate new members of this nation via interventions and enhancements such as more public and accessible projects, more accommodations and amenities for new players, and most core of all, a more enveloping national culture and drive to welcome more new people into our ranks.
Is that it?
Yes, that's my piece.
Okay. All right. Our good friend Vedd, you have a minute to respond to that, or cross-examine,
No.
or whatever.
Shouldn't
I think I
Ben
need
should
to
give
do
his
my.
response first.
Oh. Wait, isn't it? Isn't it like you get to respond to what the person
No, the
says?
responses happen after both opening statements have been made for fairness. Otherwise,
Alright,
one can take
moderator.
advantage.
Okay, whatever. All right, Vedd, you got 2 minutes to make your opening statement. Do you need me to repeat the question?
You mean my answer to this question? Sure, you can repeat the question if you want to.
Okay, what will you do as president to recruit more players? And, begin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So as president, I will be initiating a Cortesian immigration program, which I think is very necessary for our nation. Because although it's been at a stable level, I think there's sort of been a decline here now in the population changes, and I think in terms of activity, and I think Mr. Moderator would agree with me, we could do more. And I think that's also part of what an active government should be doing. So in my Cortesian immigration program, I'll make sure there's a recruitment part in it, which includes the advertisements. We must set Cortesia on the world stage as a nation you wanna live in, you wanna join, you wanna be a part of. So we must make sure that we show our nation to the world in terms of our advertisements, and show them how big our cities are, how great they are, how good it is to live here, and just make people want to come here. And then to accommodate new players, new friends, new Cortesians, I think we can't just let them be. So we must have an extensive network of tutorials, of explanations, of guidance, and I also want to make sure there's a housing program for those who need temporary housing, who want somewhere to live, a place to stay, a place to settle in Cortesia, get used to the nation. And we will do that in every city, because I think in every city we should have, in each city hall, we should have rooms available for new players, which they can settle in and then can adjust to Cortesian life. But as well as a lot of guidance and information on the website, on the Discord. And I plan to make a tutorial video, which was actually a collaborative project between me and my opponent here, the former vice president, or now the acting president. And we will explain how Cortesian life works, but also just civ mechanics, because we need to accommodate new friends as well, because we need to be a new friendly nation as much as possible. And I think we need to be on the forefront of that compared to other countries in the world.
Alright, your time has elapsed. Thank you, Mr. Vedd. So what, now we just do, like, responses to each of those statements?
You tell me.
I believe that myself and my opponent are in full agreement. I believe we struck the same points in so many words. If my opponent has any questions for me, I'm open to them, but I do not believe that this is an issue we differ.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I get, yeah.
Probably most likely not an issue. I think we agree on most things. It's just about execution. I'm just wondering what my opponent has thought about in terms of actual steps he's going to undertake to accommodate new players in Cortesia Del Mar?
Well, I believe that many of those will be addressed in questions further down the line in this debate. To give a few examples, just to provide concrete sort of evidence of planning, I intend to launch a sort of the to-do channel that would catalog active, available, concrete projects that Cortesians are invited to partake in, as I believe that this is an idea that has worked well for some of our peer nations in the region, such as Nara and Ilikivol, and I believe that that most people who join Cortesia del Mar join because they want to be a part of something bigger, and I believe that what we need to do more than anything is to enable and reward that, and that the mere existence of engaged and, well, at the very least, ambitious and available new friends is not only predictable, but not sufficient on its own to generate positive outcomes.
All right.
Right.
Thank you, Yoda. Vedd, do you have anything to say to that?
No, it's a very good idea indeed. I think its list would be very sufficient. I think that, and along with the information platform that I plan to be providing, which
Yes, I believe that our
Explains a,
collective project to create a tutorial video is definitely something that should be pursued
indeed,
vigorously.
tutorial video, pages on the website, you name it. It's just a full detailed explanation of concrete steps you can take, not only to prosper in the civilization in terms of gameplay, it's also just how to play in the nation as Cortesia del Mar, and just explain the political system, explain what you can be, what you can become, what kind of things you can chase after. But also just every type that fits. So if you want to be a builder, if you want to be a salesman, if you want to be a politician, you name it. Stuff like that. I think we should be including a very detailed description of that on our main information platform as the website to accommodate a sort of realistic society.
Absolutely. Transparency and availability are critical to making new players feel welcomed and able to make a difference.
Yeah, I think it's about accessibility. I mean, you have a very long and very detailed but very good constitution, but it's probably not as accessible to most people. So I think in terms of making that more accessible, it's just you gotta break it down and you gotta, display the information there in steps and see actually how easy it is to sort of go into those processes and also learn about how the nation works. So I believe we are in agreement on that.
Alright, so then I guess we can now move on to topic 2. Are both debaters okay with that?
Agreed.
Sure.
Alright, we will now start the second question. Vedd, you will get to go first. Yeah, so the question is, how will you balance the needs of Concord and Santiago? You'll have, I guess, 2 minutes to speak.
Okay.
So, yeah. Begin whenever you're ready.
Moderator. Yeah, so I think it's very important to bolster or to encourage both sides' activity, both sides' prosperity, because obviously Santiago and Concord are to be our most important cities in the future and in the present. And so to balance those needs between who needs what and what goes where, I think it's important we have open communication channels with both city council, city leaders, and we communicate. And then I think as a national government, your role is to be a sort of channel for that. I wouldn't say mediator because there's no conflict, but more like a channel between those two cities or between the most important cities in Cortesia del Mar. Just communicating what kind of needs there are and maybe what kind of projects they can collaborate on or just other stuff like that. but yeah, I think it's very important that we have a good relationship between the two cities. And there can also just be a healthy rivalry. I think that might encourage the growth and prosperity of both cities as well. Um, and one important project which I already highlighted in my campaign earlier is that I definitely want to get that Union Bridge done, because I think that really stands as a symbol for the unification of the former Aurelia and now Cortesia del Mar. And I think we should really just bridge that physical gap, but also maybe now um, seal the gap that remains between us with that Union Bridge that should finally get built. Um, yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vedd. Mr. Yodabird, you'll have 2 minutes. Oh, did someone hit my
That's
radar?
ice.
Oh. Let me get my... Oh, cool. Okay, sorry. I didn't have my HUD on. Mr. Yodabird, you'll have... Or do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I can begin.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. And go.
Santiago and Concord are both wondrous and successful centers of progress and beauty in Cortesia del Mar. I don't believe that there exists any trade-off or competition between the two, but rather that the enhancement of one complements the other. Rather than a question of balance, I would instead like to answer a question of fulfillment. How will I fulfill the needs of Concord and Santiago? In answer to this, I will state that I believe Concord requires more intervention at present than Santiago, being a less established city, but that both of our national centers can benefit from gentle but extensive national support and assistance. I have the full intention, whether I win the presidency or not, to construct a central building materials storage in the north of Concord. I already have a draft design for the building, though I think it still needs some time in the oven, so as to make it easier to build the city. I also want to extend the ranks of the Concord City Council to make up for a few recent departures, though this is a longer horizon objective. A similar question was asked in the previous presidential debate last October, though it naturally only concerned Santiago at the time. I echo the consensus achieved in that debate, which is that our cities are jewels, and that giving them all the governmental support that they need to thrive is a very important matter, but also they are already succeeding, and we merely ask a question of how much.
Alright, is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Alright, do you two want to continue? Do either of you want to respond?
I'd like to ask...
Oh, I just...
Yep.
Sure, you go first.
Well, I was
Okay.
kind of thinking Vedd would be able to ask first,
Yeah,
just
Vedd should go
because
first.
Yoda just... Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, you were talking about expanding the Congress City Council. How would Congress City Council look in the future under your presidency?
I mean that in the sense of adding more members, which will obviously depend on who rises to the top as major workers in Concord. That is not a question that I can
Mhm.
answer at the moment, and that's not a question anyone can answer at the moment. It is merely a statement of intentions.
Okay.
Alright,
I would like to
Yoda...
ask, if you
No
don't
question?
mind,
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
why my opponent seems to operate under, or at least operated during their response, under the assumption that there is some sort of trade-off or competition between our two cities, and why that exists as a potential issue in their eyes.
Well, I wouldn't say it exists as a potential issue. As I said, it's a healthy rivalry, I think, between, just two groups or two cities. There might undeniably be some sort of competition. I mean, it doesn't have to be, and it's not hostile or anything. But I think, there's naturally might exist some competition between the two cities. But as you said already, that they definitely complement each other into making Cortesia del Mar as a whole a beautiful nation. Um, but I wouldn't say it exists as a major issue or any sort of issue in the future in our nation, because I think we've seen so far that we're able to thrive together. And the two cities are able to make Cortesia del Mar as a nation, um, as a whole nation, a better nation. But I think undeniably, maybe there might be some competition between the two cities. I don't know. I guess maybe that's that's my analysis.
Would your
I
presidency
suppose.
operate under the assumption that there are losses to one city in the enablement of another, and do you believe that assumption reflects reality?
No, I don't think there are losses. Because I wouldn't say there's sort of a scarcity of things that need to be divided, or sort of skill sets, or like materials or anything like that. I think we do fine on that, and I think both builders are not excluded from building in each city and excluded from collaborating. So no, I don't think so. I think as a president as well, and as a national government, you stand above that. There's no party picking. There's no side picking. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's a major. There's no major conflict as well. There's no major conflict at all. There's no major issue. Um, but I think just yeah, there might be competition, but I don't think that's something that you can completely deny from happening. And I think that's for everything in life as well. It's just underlying present, but it doesn't seem that it's unhealthy or very hostile or toxic in any way. And I think it's also something that encourages growth in both cities and might do well for the nation. So
All right. Do we? Do either of you have anything else to say? Ask.
I have no further questions.
Same here.
All right. We will be moving on to the third question. Udebird, you get to go first this time, even though I think Vedd should just go first because Vedd is infinitely better. Haha.
Lies and slander.
Exactly.
Wow,
But
I'm flattered.
yeah, I know.
Taylor,
Now,
would you
see
mind
the-
voicing the question for us?
Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. What will you do to improve the transportation infrastructure of Cortesia? You will have 2 minutes. And yeah, begin.
Cortesia del Mar's transport infrastructure helps connect our citizens to the world. Our previous Interior Minister, Conrad Potato, has already left us with an extensive overland rail network and several underground rail lines in the west, which it is my intention to capitalize on and use to enhance Cortesia's connectivity to the world. I believe that three major projects will constitute our main focus during my presidency with respect to rail infrastructure. The construction of Concord Central Station, which will formalize and centralize both the overland and underground rail systems of the West. The construction of Santiago Central Station, which is already underway. And the construction of the Union Bridge across the Medici between our two cities, which has been a goal since even before the union of Cortesia with Aurelia. These, I believe, are corollary to my more overarching goal of accelerating development and activity in Cortesia, and I firmly intend to see them all accomplished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Udebird. Vedd, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, alright, you'll have 2 minutes, and begin.
Thank you. Okay. So I think obviously infrastructure in Cortesia del Mar is very important to, as my opponent said already, to connect us to the world. I think with the rules we already have, we can have we already have a very good shot at improving connectivity between our nation and other nations. And under my presidency, I will just make sure that this remains a robust and efficient network of railways in our nation that connect our continent and other continents in the world. And as I said already, as I want to build the Union Bridge to make sure that we have the connection between the continent of Alanaris and the continent that I completely forgot the name of, but that's fine.
It doesn't have a consistent name.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not my fault. Anyway, obviously I want to connect both continents because I think that we as a nation could be a gateway country to two very important continents and busy continents, and we can act as a transport hub in a sense in this western or in this southern part of the world, which would definitely improve activity in our nation and might bring a lot of chances with them as well. But apart from railways and railway connectivity, I think we should also make sure that there's a good and sufficient road network as well. Because I think not only that it might suit the environment or the nation itself, but just in terms of being able to reach stuff. I think we should just have roads to places as well. Um, and I did have a plan about building a national road network in terms of highways and connecting them to other cities on the continent and across the continent. Because I think you should also be able to walk wherever you want, and not be in the grass or just try and climb mountains. I think that improves accessibility to other cities, apart from railways. And I
Okay,
think it's a
thank
complement to
you.
railway.
Sorry, thank you, Ved. Your time has
Okay,
elapsed.
yeah, thank you.
Do you guys have any questions for each other?
I believe that myself and Vedd are in agreement on this issue, but I invite any clarifying questions if there is anything that Vedd would like to have figured out.
I mean, I also think we're definitely in agreement. Um, but yeah, I would like to ask you as well: are you going to prioritize other networks of like stuff like road networks,
I,
apart from railways?
I believe that extending infrastructure is a natural component of improving our nation's general accessibility and utility. I think that, as I said in my initial response, doing so is corollary to getting a more active nation, and I think that there is just as much reason to extend alternative transit networks as to extend rail networks, and that the issue is not at all different between rail and other forms of infrastructure. So I don't believe that's a very significant distinction.
All right.
No further.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Okay.
Not at the moment,
All right.
no.
Okay.
Okay, well, then we're good to move on to the fourth topic. Or, I mean, yeah, the fourth topic. How will you manage XP production? I believe Vedd is going first this time.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll have 2 minutes, and feel free to begin.
So I think it remains very important for Digital Mart to remain XP independent, as we are, because as well as trading with our allies, which is something we should definitely continue to be doing. I think it's important to remain independent as well, and I think under my presidency that we'll have. I'll make sure that our XP production remains as sufficient as it ever could be, and that we can use all that is left over to bolster our financial policy. Because I would also like to create a new financial policy in Cortesia Del Mar that increases our finances and makes sure we have a steady income. And I would like to do something in terms of a Cortesian corporation that is an international company and that trades with the rest of the world. So I think it's very important that we keep our production up and as sufficient as we can, and that we remain to exploit our colonies and many lands that we own to the best of our abilities. And then, yeah, that's how I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ved. Yoda Bird, do you need the question repeated?
No, thank you. I'll begin.
Okay.
In the previous election, it was a campaign promise of ice creams and mine to see to it that Cortesia became fully XP independent within its own borders by the end of the previous year. By my hand, this was accomplished. I have personally built our farms for wheat, oak, cactus, sweet berries, potatoes, cocoa, jungle, sugarcane, weeping vines, and twisted vines, and netherwort. As a consequence, Cortesia is able to produce XP domestically. While I do not believe that the sort of dominating focus on XP production, which characterized the first month of the server, is, strictly speaking, necessary anymore, as we no longer need to climb the ladder in this area, but merely upkeep our present success, I of course warmly welcome commitment and productivity in the XP domain, and if I am elected, this will be reflected in my handling of XP in office. I want things like XP production, really, for that matter, all forms of meta production, such as bastions, tools, prot, etc., to be accessible and reliable, and I fully intend to support any Cortesian who wishes to contribute in these areas. Potato is no mic right now, looks like.
Oh.
Oh shit, sorry.
Oh, hello.
Ah, fuck. Are you guys... is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Alright, thank you, Mr. Yoda Bird. Do either of you guys have questions for one another?
Yes, I'd like to ask if my opponent could describe the process of producing XP, step by step.
Vedd, here, I know I'm just kind of introducing this now, but, Vedd, do you have any questions for Yoda Bird?
Oh yeah, Vedd answered first, actually.
Yeah.
Wait, do my question go? Should I answer?
If you have any questions, if you have any
uh,
questions, ask them first.
Yeah, sorry. If you have a question,
Sorry,
you
I
can
jumped the
ask
gun.
it, but if not, yeah, if you have a question, you can ask, but if you don't, then Yoda Bird will get to ask his question.
Okay, so yeah, I do have a question. So in terms of XP production, like in terms of how you're gonna manage XP production, what kind of roles will people play in the cabinet, or in terms of how it's organized, especially like in terms of logistics and stuff, like how is that gonna be organized in your administration?
This, I feel, is part of why my initial question, which I admit was premature, was for my opponent to describe their conception of XP production. At a point during my opponent's response, they described their desire to make sure Cortesia maintains its XP independence, which struck me as symptomatic of a possible misunderstanding of what it actually looks like to produce XP on the ground. I was a significant component of Cortesia's XP production from start of the world. I have personally produced several, several dozen XP runs, which have enriched this nation. I believe that, based on my experience, it is not necessary to strictly organize XP production as a sort of logistical enterprise, top-down via the cabinet. I believe that XP production works most easily when it is natural, modular, and helped out by multiple people. And I believe that this sort of practical, outcomes-first policy will be my approach to XP in my future presidency.
Okay, so can I have a follow-up?
Yeah, I would like to reiterate my question for for Vedd to describe the process of XP and what is necessary to produce it.
Right.
Just so we can have a sort of mutual understanding on Vedd's level of knowledge about the process.
So, in terms of XP production, I obviously know that it's not coming from mobs or anything because it's Civ. I know that he has to use special factories, and they can be used in the Cauldron factory or in the Advanced Cauldron, if I remember that correctly.
You are correct.
And each has four recipes. That includes
Actually,
the farmable.
The basic Cauldron has 5.
The base only has 5. Right, so they have recipes that includes the farmable items as the input, and they all differ in terms of efficiency and in terms of what they take up. But I wouldn't know from the top of my head what each recipe includes. So if that's your question, I would have to go look that up. But um, yeah, do you want me to
Okay,
explain
well, I'm
more or?
well, okay. Well, then I'm wondering whence you got the idea that there is some concern that Cortesia del Mar could lose its XP independence if not maintained, whatever that means. I want to understand what you were angling at with that, because that did not strike me as consistent with an accurate understanding of XP production.
Oh no, I wouldn't say it would lose their XP independence. I think once we reach the all the recipes or the things that are possible in our nation, in our lands, then we have a XP independence. But it's also in terms of um how you keep it up, which was a follow question of me, like how do you make XP production accessible to um all new Cortesians or new players who want to participate. Like how do you make it as easy as possible to go uh, and do the work?
Well, I'd like to turn that question around on you then. There's a very well established precedent on what it takes for a nation with a lot of new players, such as Nara or Icenia, to make it accessible for members to contribute to XP production. I want to know if you know what it is, as I believe it would work quite well for us as well.
I don't think I'm aware of the Nara or the what the other nation you mentioned, that what their system
One
is.
of our allies, Icenia.
You said Asenia. Okay. No, I don't think I'm aware of their system.
The typical approach is to institute an XP exchange with chest shops, whereby players can trade in certain components of a recipe. For instance, with XP4, maybe they trade in the 16 compacted jungle saplings, which is something that is required for the recipe, and then receive some share of the XP product in return as a reward so that they are incentivized to do it more. And I believe that that is pretty much a no-brainer as a mechanism for uh, enabling our new players to contribute to national production. And I believe that getting something like that set up would be a good idea.
Right. Yeah, that does ring a bell. Actually. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think we should definitely set it up in Cortesia no more as well,
Well,
especially
glad to hear that you
to
agree with that.
encourage um to encourage the flow of goods in our country, money especially.
All
Okay.
right, then I have no further questions.
Ved, do you have any further questions?
I do not.
Okay. All right. We will be moving on to our fifth topic. Um, what will your foreign policy be? And I'm sorry. Who spoke first that time? I kind of
It's
lost
my
track.
turn to speak first
Okay.
because it's an odd numbered question.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, could you say the question?
Yeah, sorry. The question number 5 is what will your foreign policy be?
All right. Thank you.
And you may begin.
In the realm of diplomacy, I am firmly committed to Cortesia's present path. I believe that Cortesia's present relations, and especially a membership in the Security Enhancement Coalition and the Independent Southern Powers, are a tremendous asset to our nation, and that our interests will be best served by continuing to forge and strengthen them. The primary thing that I believe needs to change in terms of our foreign stance, rather, is that I want more members of Cortesia besides myself, such as my opponent, to be engaged with our foreign partners and directly reap these benefits of which I've spoken. Making this happen requires a redoubling of efforts to deepen comity between ourselves and our partners at every level. A diplomatic affinity is a bond which all Cortesians may enjoy.
Is that it?
Yes, that's that. Yes.
All right. Vedd, it is your, Vedd, it is your turn to respond. Do you need the question repeated?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, you may begin.
So I think I'm in agreement with my opponent said in terms of maintaining the current international relations that we have. I wouldn't want to make under my administration any drastic changes to the international relations that are currently standing. Um, and I think that our participation in our alliances and um, other friendships that we hold are very important and very important for the nation of Cortesia to prosper. And I also agree that I think the nation in itself could participate more with our allies, which is why I always wanted to, under my foreign department, set up a system of embassies as well. But I also wanted to just, take the time to visit other nations and hold events between our peoples or do collaborative projects or um, things like that. I think it could strengthen our current international relations. Um, but I think it's also part of what happens internally in our nation because um, our information network, which is something that I've mentioned many times before already, um, could significantly improve um, in terms of encouraging the activity with our allies. I think it's important that we maintain or that we update our people on what's happening in the world um, in terms of, thinking of um, a page of the foreign department on the website or in Discord or frequent updates in the bulletin or things like that. I think haven't been happening in the previous administration that I would like to change under my presidency. Um, yeah, we should just be updating our people and giving them the chance to explain what's happening in the world. And I think that's a responsibility as the government of a nation. But yeah, that's what I would say. So there's no drastic changes, but there's
All right.
stuff we can do to increase interaction.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Vedd.
On the
All
issue
right.
of improving members' engagement with our allies, I'd like to engage my opponent's expertise and ask to understand what could be holding people back right now and what could be changed to fix that. As my opponent has been the foreign minister of Cortesia since October, and despite having full leadership access to the Security Enhancement Coalition Discord, has zero messages in any SEC leadership channels. So I would like to ask what my opponent believes is holding them back, and what changes I could make as president to encourage them and people like them to be more engaged with our allies.
Very good question. I think as a citizen of Cortesia you're not really perhaps in the loop in terms of what happens in the nation or what happens in the national stage. Um, I mean, there's no frequent updates in also like major changes as well. Like the bulletin in Digimar is not used as often as it should be. Um, but I also think that it's obviously very important to interact with allies on a friendly level. So yes, that's
Do you
definitely
believe
encouraged.
that those are the only issues present? I only ask because those all sound to me like issues that wouldn't have affected you as a person with equal access to myself in our alliances.
No, I don't think those are the only issues present. Although yes, maybe being uninformed is probably something that is bit of a bump or a bit of a barrier that you have to cross first, and to be able to actively participate. Um, which is probably a barrier I haven't or maybe struggled to pass. Like yeah, and in terms of just it's difficult to actively participate if you're not as informed as you'd like to be. Um, but other than just being informed and speaking with your allies, it's probably important to, organize things like events between nations and um, make sure friendships are formed from that level.
Alright, Yoderbird, do you have any more questions for Vedd?
Nope, no more questions here.
Vedd, do you have any questions for Yoderbird?
Um, no, I don't. I don't suppose I do. No.
You don't? Alright. Okay, we will be moving on to the sixth and final topic. Because of the way this is, you guys can, I guess, opt out of answering it because it's... the question is, what major changes, if any, will you make to Cortesia? So, I mean, obviously, if you aren't making any major changes, you can just say, I'm not making any major changes.
I would hope that everyone who's running for this office has some significant plans.
Well, yeah, that's the hope, but, I mean, if you don't, then, I guess just say you don't. Vedd, I believe you can respond first.
Okay, so a major change I would be making in our nation is communication. That's a very broad term, but just to explain it better, I think our government could be an actual present government compared to the last government. That admittedly I actually participated in as well, but that's something I wanted to do under my presidency and something I wanted to improve on a lot. I think we should heavily be an active present government that communicates with its people, and also strives to inform them on things you can do or how to do things or things that are happening around the world or things that are happening in the nation itself, and just be more visible in every single way, in Discord and in game, but also of course on the website, which is one of the bigger projects I hope to be heading under my future presidency, and I think would improve communication as a whole for our nation significantly. So my major changes would be an actual present government.
Okay, is that everything, Mr. Vedd?
Well, I could go on with other infrastructure projects or things, but like that. But I think that's the most important thing I want to be doing under my presidency. The most important thing I want to change. Yeah.
Okay. Alright, Mr. Yoderbird, do you need the question repeated?
No, thank you.
Alright. I know I just asked that every single time.
I get it. I get it. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright.
Alright, so yeah, begin.
Cortesia del Mar has succeeded across these last 6 years, in large part because of our tireless adaptability. We are, and always have been, a nation which is unafraid to take a leap and to be in flux for doing so. As we face down the reality of having a new president for the first time since our establishment, we face a leap no matter what. It has come time, again, for Cortesia to be bold and to renew itself. I am happy with what we have already accomplished in CivMC, but I firmly hold that we can, at the same time, be doing far more. We are a close community of good friends, and we deserve not to merely succeed on CivMC, but to really flourish as a hub of activity and life. More than anything else, I desire to take this moment of profound plasticity to inject new vigor and drive into this hallowed nation, and thereby to enrich the experiences of every Cortesian. Building something like that is easier said than done. I have many ideas on my own for how to accomplish it, but neither I nor anyone else could possibly succeed at this galvanizing task without the contribution and faith of the other members of this nation. But great things are not accomplished without effort, and I could not ask for a better group of people to accomplish them with. What changes will I make to Cortesia? Ask instead, what changes will we make to Cortesia? Thank you.
Alright, Yoda, do you have any questions for Vedd?
I do not have any questions for Vedd at the moment.
Okay, Vedd, do you have any questions for Yoda Bird?
I do not.
Okay, then, I guess that concludes the debate.